So here's the thing about baking for other people. Sometimes you want it to be really over the top and you have time to spend a whole day making something really extravagant. Other times you either don't have time to do it, you forget until the last minute, or you're just kind of drawing a blank on what to make. But I have to say that can happen to me quite a lot. People will either want something or I'll be having guests over and I'm like, I don't really know what to make. I don't know what I want to make. I don't know what I'm feeling today. So one thing I love to get creative with is puff pastry. Puff pastry is a gift from God, I swear, because you can get it at the grocery store, it comes frozen, and you can just keep it in your freezer. If you want to make something, take it out, thaw it, and you can pretty much do anything with it. I love to keep it really simple, honestly, because this is one of those things that doesn't really require a whole lot. So something I really love to do with puff pastry is just put stuff in between two sheets of it. Cut it into squares and people eat it up, honey. Like, they can't get enough. And what's even better about this is you only need a few things. You can put anything in here. You can make it savory with like meats and cheeses or veggies, you name it. You can do fruit pie fillings in here. The sky's literally the limit. I love it. Because that way also, if you have like just some random dessert craving and you don't want to break out everything or have to buy a million things at the store, this is one thing that requires so little. This s'mores filled puff pastry, while it's one of the simplest, is probably one of my most favorite. That being one of the reasons, actually. Because all you do is unfold your sheet of puff pastry. I did let this sit at room temperature for like 15 minutes, not so it's totally soft, but just so it isn't so cold from the fridge. You can't use straight from the freezer puff pastry. You need to have some flexibility in the dough here just because we're gonna be crimping it and all that. How easy this is I'm literally just taking marshmallows and chocolate chips, putting it in puff pastry, baking it, and serve it to people. They will eat that up, honey. They will be like, what? I just get semi-sweet chocolate chips. You can use dark chocolate chips. You can chop nice bar chocolate if you want to. While you're doing this, you definitely need to leave a nice little border around the edge here, just so that this can be completely encased in the puff pastry and nothing is leaking out the sides. So I'd say about an inch border around this square of puff pastry. Something else you can do with this if you want to throw a little more effort into it is you can actually cut this into squares, make little individual mini like s'mores pies with puff pastry, and you can fry them, you can bake them. This is one of those times where simpler is absolutely better. So I'm just going to take, these are larger marshmallows. You can pile mini marshmallows on here as well. This is what I saw, it's actually what I had in the pantry, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. So if you want to know exactly how many large marshmallows I used, if you're OCD like me, 22 marshmallows. And I used probably about, I'd say, a solid cup of chocolate chips. So all that's left after this is to get this other sheet of puff pastry over here, unfold it, and literally just put it on top of this filling. And she's full, honey, but she is going to be good. And if you need to like just kind of stretch it a little bit, the top one does need to be a little bit larger since it has all that filling to kind of cover. But now that that's kind of appropriately sized, I'm gonna get some egg wash. Egg wash is the best way to make pastry of whatever kind really golden brown as it bakes. An egg with about a tablespoon of water. So egg wash done. And this is exactly why I left a border around this filling. Is because not only do we need to line the pastry up, but we're gonna egg wash it because it's gonna help seal it. So just taking a brush here, don't need tons of it, just a nice light layer of egg wash around the border. Another sheet of puff pastry here, lay it on top of the filling. I'm first off gonna line up these edges here. Initially press them down with my fingers, making sure there's no chocolate chips or marshmallow that are like caught between the layers of puff pastry. Because again, I want this to bake and then you cut into it and it's a total surprise of what it is. This looks like a giant ravioli and I'm kind of here for it. It's a s'mores ravioli. All right. And then we're gonna take this fork and we're just gonna crimp these edges to help seal it. And obviously doing this on the sheet lined with parchment paper is the best way to do it because you don't want to transport this, otherwise it's going to rip. So make sure from the get-go you're doing this on the sheet that you're gonna bake it on, because we don't want any disasters. I'm already disaster enough. I don't need to add to it. And then just brush some egg wash on top so this gets really nice and golden brown as it bakes, and all around the edges too. I'm gonna use a knife, and I'm just gonna cut a couple of slits in the top here, so in case any steam builds up in there, it can escape. And that's it, my lovelies. This is gonna go in a 350 Fahrenheit oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. Puff pastry can take a little while to bake all the way through. It really puffs up. Like it's easy to underestimate how large this is gonna get. So raw pastry is obviously not very enjoyable. So once it's a nice deep golden brown, it should be slightly firm to the touch, and it should be good to go. So 30 to 35 minutes, and easiest dessert ever, and one of the best for that very reason. All right, so this is when I get really excited about doing something so simple, because this is gorgeous. It's golden brown. The puff pastry is absolutely beautiful. Something I particularly love about this is, since marshmallows have such a high composition of sugar, it caramelizes in the oven. So not only do they melt and get gooey, but it creates like its own caramel sauce that goes with the chocolate, the puff pastry, and it is delicious. And it's always hard to decide like where to cut into this. I gave this 30 minutes in the oven and it was good to go. I let it set for about 10 minutes outside the oven, because you do need to let it cool down. Unless you want to be burning yourself with chocolate marshmallow goo, then go for it, whatever you're into. Not gonna lie, it's pretty hot, but still, you get the ooey gooiness of a classic s'more. With the melty chocolate, you get the marshmallow flavor, but that puff pastry is like buttery, flaky. So that just goes to prove that a delicious special treat to serve a group of people doesn't have to be complicated. It can be literally like 3 or 4 ingredients, and you got this. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Leave me a thumbs up and some comments below. There will not be a link to this recipe because it is so simple. I will just put that in the description, but the links in the description will take you to my cookbook and my other recipes and my social media. Be sure to check all that out. Until next time, this is Bake It with AJ. I really shouldn't eat a second one of these, but I'm totally going to. It's almost like this should not be this good, but it is.